Welcome to this video tutorial about Jems. We will do a video tutorial today on the accounts, payment application to EC, how to create both of these in Jems, and how to do corrections in full and also include them in the payment application to EC or into the accounts. So how do corrections work? Corrections consist of 4 sections. So there's the first chapter where you can identify corrections and create follow-up corrections, so link it to a previous correction. There's a second chapter where you can identify the amount of the correction. There's a third chapter where you can indicate the impact at project level. And then there's a final section where you can indicate the impact at program level. Furthermore, we will look into how to do the payment applications to EC in Jems and how to do annual accounts in Jems. So the basic principles. The correction section is visible for anyone with access to the project, and applicants have view rights by default. So corrections are transparently added to the project, and projects, applicants, partners can see the corrections that happen to their project. The audit and control section can be created and always reopened. So you can always add more corrections to the audit and control section. And corrections can be followed up. So if a correction is closed, you can link another correction to this previous correction for follow-up. Corrections can also lead to an impact at project level, as indicated before. For example, a flat correction can lead to a project modification. You can then also link the correction to a modification and reduce the project budget. Or it can lead to a repayment where you can link the correction ID to a project installment. So a payment to the beneficiary. So you can either create a negative installment and link the correction, or link it to an existing installment and reduce the amount. Then it might also be that the corrections need to be reported to the commission, either in the payment application to EC or in the accounts, and this depends on the scenarios. We will see how all of this works in Jems now in the system. Okay, so we are now on our latest environment. Let me log into Jems. And then let's first start to create some corrections. So I will go to a known project. And I already created a few corrections here, but let's create a new one. So you can create an audit and control, which is kind of this investigation. And let's, for example, choose the audit authority. So they did an investigation. You can put a start date of the control and an end date. This can always be changed. And you can also set a final report date at any date you like. And then you can also indicate whoever has access to this page with edit rights, of course. So you can give this right to any program user with the privileges. You can say how much was controlled. So for example, 50,000. So this project has a bunch of partners and several reports. So you see directly after creation that you can create corrections, different types. So link to invoice and not link to invoice. You can also upload files here, and you can close the auditing control. So it could be that there was an audit done and there were no findings. You could upload the audit report and just close the audit and control. And now you see it's closed. I close it directly because, as you can see now, I cannot create corrections, but I can still reopen it. So now I reopened it. Of course, all those actions are logged in the audit log, and I can now create a correction. So let me create one to a link to the invoice first. By creating a correction, so let me go back to the audit. You can see now that I can also no longer close, because you can only close when all corrections are closed, all underlying corrections. So let me go back here. And as I explained in the intro, there are 4 chapters. So this is to identify your correction, then to input the amounts, and then there's the impact at project level and the impact at program level. So we will go slowly through each section. So here you can select any previous closed corrections that have been taken place. So here you can actually link it to a previous correction. You could also indicate then the reason why this was a follow-up correction. So maybe it was because of late repayment, interest, or a court procedure, why we needed a follow-up. You can also leave this on no, and you can also, for a late repayment, indicate that the dates basically. So you can also define the scope of this correction here. This is very important because this defines a lot later on. So you should also be aware of what you're doing. Corrections are done per fund. So as you saw for this partner, this is a partner with multiple funds. I can select one or the other funds because later on for the impact at program level and also payments, we do per fund. So therefore you can do, if you have a partner with multiple funds, you will have to do 2 corrections for each fund if a cost item is from this partner with multiple funds. Then if you chose the partner report and the fund, you can choose the cost item because this was the correction linked to a cost item. You also see a toggle here, but you can only switch this toggle for corrections not linked to cost items. So we'll get back to that later. Here it is default a partner report. So corrections are always linked to a partner report in this case. So I could choose a cost item that is concerned and then indicate, well, this cost item of 3,000 euros is has to be corrected. And then I can indicate it's a positive or a negative correction. Currently, the system does not propose you the correct rates for that cost item since we only round and calculate funds on totals in Jems. And therefore, if we would apply the rounding here ourselves by the system, it will most likely be incorrect to your understanding. So to keep that also simple and straightforward, we for now did not add anything. So you should calculate also if you choose, in my case, for example, a regular lump sum. If there are flat rates on top, that's most likely not the case, but potentially for equipment, there could be flat rates on top. And then you would have to enter the amounts that are concerned. So I could enter any amounts. And then I could say, is this now a positive or negative correction? So usually they are negative, so let's keep it negative. I can put in the date of when the information was sent to the beneficiary. And I also have a list of correction types here. This is a fixed list from the commission. So you could choose any correction type here that this correction complies to. Then there are 3 questions here. We found those in the regulation, but only the first one is crucial. So the other 2 you could track if if it's related to gold plating if you want, and if there's a suspicion of fraud. Jems does just store this information. For now, there's no clear need to report this, but you could potentially, if you fill this incorrectly, use this data in the future. The first one, however, is recorded. Depending on if you say yes or no here, the data, if you have an impact at program level, will transfer to different columns in the payment application to EC and in the accounts. So therefore, it is important that you answer this correctly. So you should answer here, is this correction related to a clerical mistake, yes or no? Or if it is related to a payment application to EC that is not yet included in a payment application. So if this expenditure originally, this report, was already reported. So as you can see, it was included in a project report. And now we want to see if this was actually already in a payment application, an existing one. Where can you see this? You can see this directly here in section 4. So in this first row, you see it says no. So that means that this cost item was not reported yet to the commission because it was not included in a payment application to EC. I could potentially change the report, and maybe then suddenly it might become yes, because I would choose a different report. Let's see, I need to find a different project report, maybe project report 8. So, no, it's also not included. But if this is correctly done, then you will see below that this gets pre-filled. So I did not probably create payment applications to EC yet, but for now this is fine. So in this case, you would tick yes, but let's now for testing purposes leave it on no. So there's also section 3 where you could say what is the impact at project level. So there are 5 options: nothing, repayment by the project, adjustment in the next payment, budget reduction, and repayment by the national authority. So for both NA and payment to the national authority, nothing will happen. For the second and the third option, the correction ID, which is this number, so this number will be available in the payments section. And in this case, it will be available in the modification section of the application form, so here. And then when you create a modification, you can link this correction once closed to the modification or to the payments to an individual installment. So let's see how it, for example, looks for the repayment. So I will save this. We can then choose lastly the scenarios. So we could, for example, say that so these scenarios are also, they explain the action. So you can see that if a cost item is under 250 euros cumulatively, then no correction has to be done in the payment application to EC. If it is above, scenario 3 applies. Scenario 3 means that it should be deducted from the accounts. If you choose NA, 2 or 5, it will be withdrawn from the payment application. So I could choose, for example, scenario 2, and 3 and 4 are deducted from the account. So we will see all of them and we will have a look at how this looks. As soon as you would include this correction, this closed correction, once it's closed, it can be included in a payment application to EC or in the accounts. Also, the accounting year in which the irregularity was settled will be automatically pre-filled here. So if you see an amount here, it means that this correction was actually included already in a payment application to EC or in the accounts. So let me close this correction. And then let's go to the other choice, which is the not linked to invoice. Here, see, I could, for example, link it now to the other correction we just created. And also put the court procedure, etc. That's all similar. You can say here, for example, that we do not do a correction on the partner report and a cost item, but on the fast track lump sum. You could, in a similar way, then choose a partner and look at the shares of the fast track lump sum. So this is from the application form. If that partner has a fast track lump sum share in the application form, then you can also do a correction on the fast track lump sum. So I could do that here. If not, I could also do a correction on the partner report. So if I go to a partner report, you can see here that again, I can choose a fund. And once I save, I can, from this partner report, choose any cost category. If I want to do a flat correction on a cost category, saying all staff is ineligible, or I can do a correction on a procurement. So these are the procurements that this partner has ever reported. And I could also do both. I could say all staff from this procurement are wrong. I should then again indicate the amounts and then do a correction. Also, I have to indicate similarly. So actually all the other sections are quite similar. I have to indicate those correction types and I have similar questions. So particularly this first part is different because you do not select a single cost item, but you can actually select a cost category or a procurement. And you can also do corrections on fast track lump sums. So let's, for example, for this one, then choose the accounts so that we can also see how it looks in the accounts. So now if I close the correction, they are basically already settled. So they are transferred to the places they have to go. And we have an impact at project level for the first one, and for the second one, we don't have that. So you do not have to close the audit and control this. You can close at any time. As you have seen, the controlling body is also locked. This locked basically as soon as we closed one single correction, because the controlling body is also important. The Commission requires that in the accounts, the controlling body for certain controlling bodies is also reported separately, and that's all done automatically by the system. So these things are also important. So make sure that you choose also the right controlling body. So we have now a correction for IPA, for the payment application to EC on the scenario 2, and for NDICI for the accounts. So now let's go to the payment section. We can first see the impact at project level. So I would have to find a payment for this project 93, because you should add this, of course, to an existing payment where this partner is available. So if I would find this project 93, And I can then look for any payment where hopefully this partner is available. And for the right fund, of course. Then this was partner 2. So I cannot select partner 6, but it was partner 2, so I cannot select it. But if I find the right partner, then I can also link in that dropdown that I just showed. So I can also sort per fund or filter per fund. Maybe I filter per fund, maybe that's easier. Then I can also try to find one where we have that partner included. And it can be any of them. So it can also be a fast track lump sum. Most likely this, if you are CA, you would have this more planned, of course. Currently, I do not find any partner 2. But I did find one for the lead partner. So I could, for example, also show it briefly on the lead partner. So if I would go to the project and quickly close another correction, you can see also the impact for the lead partner. So I go back to the project section. In the project, you can find the corrections. I could create a new audit or control or add one under the existing one. And then choose here the lead partner, because we know that there are some payments outstanding. Otherwise, I would first have to make a new payment for partner 2, which also could work, but it takes too much time now for this demonstration. And I put in some amounts. And then I say that I want a repayment by the project and no impact at program level. And now if I close this correction and I go to one of those payments, and then in the payment to projects, you will be able to see this correction available. As you can see now, I can link this correction to the lead partner. So I can say that this payment, which is a negative payment, is linked to this correction. And this way you can trace that this correction is there. You can also use these hyperlinks. They are quite handy. So you can actually see here that this was for partner report 10. You can click on it, jump to partner report 10. You can click here to jump to the project. You can click here to jump to the correction section. So if I click here, you can see I jump directly to the correction section. And I can then see which correction that was, this 34.1, which was this one. So then let's go back to the payment application to EC. So as we said, well, there's already a bunch of them available here. Payment applications to EC are created. So you can create a payment application to EC as such. And you can only have one payment application to EC open for the same fund and same accounting year. So you see, for example, one is gray here. And that is because this year 1 is already used in a draft payment application to EC. So I could create one for year 2, but not another one for year 1. I would first have to close the other one for year 1 until I open a new one. Then if you open a payment application to EC, there are several things in the other details that can always be completed. So you can always put the national reference, the TA received, date of submission, SFC number. Even when the payment application to EC is closed, you can complete this. And it already, you see that there are some values for the current payment application and cumulatively for that fund and accounting year. So cumulatively, you can also see that per priority, this is all sorted properly. So in the regular projects, you can then, for example, find all the projects. Everything that was not yet selected in a payment application to EC for this fund is automatically selected. You can then actually, for the regular reports, also correct the of which contributions. And this is important because the commission wants to know the total public contribution. This has to be reported in SFC, and that is a combination of the fund amount and the public and the auto public. So it is the total of public contribution that they want to know. So therefore you can also fix the rounding here if you like. And if you do so, then you can see that that the row becomes highlighted. So it turns into a different color. And that way you can see that the correction was made to this row. It is still advisable also to explain it in the comment field in case the colors are not so clear on your screen. So you could say here, I fixed the rounding. And then you can see that there, that this row was edited. So you also have to be aware that anything that is ready any reports that are verified, any fast track lump sums that are set to ready for payment is automatically selected when you create a payment application to EC. For programs using Article 9495, in the contract monitoring section, there are two toggles where you can set the project to, yes, this is a project having SEOs approved under Article 9495. All the reports of that project and all fast track lump sums will show up in this tab. Everything works more or less the same. The only difference is that for those reports and those fast track lump sums, the programs having those Article 9495 SEOs have to report also union contribution. So therefore, they have to actively identify of each report, each fast track lump sum, how much of that fast track lump sum was a union contribution. So it could be that this lump sum, for example, was approved by the commission and that it's fully a union contribution lump sum. So basically you see that total eligible without SCO 9495 is automatically adjusted. This is basically the difference between the union contribution and the total eligible. So if you would fill in the amount here, it becomes automatically 0. Then once I save, you see that for that priority, the amount is added to the total union contribution. So for every row where you know that the project with Article 9495 has declared that lump sum or that unit cost that was approved by the commission or flat rate, you will have to indicate the share of that report in the union contribution column so that you can correctly report the union contribution to the commission. And then lastly, what you find in the payment application to EC is the corrections tab. And this is what we were curious about. So you can see that here you can find the corrections that we were creating, and you can see that they are also automatically included when you create it. And that is only for those falling under the correct scenarios. Similarly, you can also correct the rounding here if you like to. And if the correction is for Article 9495 project, you can even indicate the union contribution so that you can explain also in the correction what of the union contribution should be corrected in case you want to. So in case of those scenarios, automatically the corrections are added to the payment application to EC in this tab. You can of course actively unselect them if you want to include them in a different payment application to EC, but upon creation, things are selected. If items are verified while the payment application to EC is in draft, then they get added in an unselected way. So it could be that here suddenly if some other program or another user verifies a project report, that suddenly you see an item here that's unselected. You can also sort on that. And then that means that that was added to the payment application while the payment application was in draft. So that means you actively have to add it by selecting it. Otherwise it does not get added. And then you can also finalize the payment application to EC and also set it back to draft at any time. What is important now to know is that in the accounts, there we have a different way of doing this. So in the accounts, for each fund available in the program setup, a table is created with 9 accounts, one for each accounting year. And they're by default in draft. Whenever a payment application is finished, the data travels automatically to that account. So actually, there's not much to do here, being the body of accounting function or the CA or MA in case you do so, because the values are correctly put in the right place. You can still upload files here and also complete this section, the accounting details, in case you want to. But the only main action you can actually do here, so basically this appendix 1 is just the sum of all payment applications to EC for that same fund and same accounting year. And the tables that are according to the regulation, so appendix 1, appendix 2, and appendix 4 are automatically filled with all the data that has been gathered. The only thing that you have to do is actively include corrections that were for the scenarios 3 and 4 into the accounts. So that means that those scenarios basically state that the last payment application to EC for that fund and that accounting year was closed. It's also all described here. And then you can only include those corrections still into the account. So then if you would include one, the values get directly updated here. And also the appendixes get correctly updated. So also those corrections, of course, get withdrawn from the appendix 1. And they also get compiled here in appendix 4. So now the complexity starts. So appendix 4 is all corrections, a summary in the way the commission wants it to be reported in SFC of all corrections input into the accounts, not into the payment application to EC. There are 4 columns, and the amounts are put automatically in the right place. So if a correction is closed, falling on the scenario 4, those values should be put in column G1. And there's basically a set of items per priority. So this test environment has a lot of priorities. You might just have 4 or 5 or 6 priorities. And under that, as I indicated before about this AA, for example, the controlling bodies have to be split. So in case the AA is the controlling body, or EC, ECA, or OLAF is a controlling body, they want to know separately which corrections are to be considered as part of findings by those controlling bodies. So therefore, the controlling body is important because it will show up in a separate sub-row. So if a project falls under this priority and a correction is done by the auditing authority, it will of course show in the total priority amount, but also here. And that is how these columns are automatically filled. For G2, it is any corrections that are closed on a scenario 3, and G3 is those clerical and technical mistakes. So if you tick yes under the clerical technical mistakes, the amounts will be put automatically under G3. And G4 is a comment field that can always be edited. What the commission recommends is that whenever you see any amounts here, a comment is more or less required, because you will have to justify why this correction was put into the accounts and not settled in the payment application to EC. So this is this table, and then appendix 2 is an overview of all corrections that took place in the payment applications to EC. So the one, for example, we just included, it was a different font, so it wouldn't show here, but corrections included in the payment application to EC are also here correctly put in place. So they're summed up by priority and also again shown not only for controlling bodies, but also in which accounting year those relate to. Because in the payment application to EC, it could potentially be that the cost item where the issue was found was not from this accounting year, but from a previous one. So therefore, it can be that you would include in a payment application 3 an issue finding from payment application year 2, because the cost item was reported to the commission in year 2. And all of this is done automatically by selecting the corrections correctly and including them in the correct payment application to EC. Those sums will automatically be shown here and automatically correctly summed up for the table. And so you could also see for one priority 2 sets of this. If there are 2 corrections, one for this accounting year and one for the previous, you could also see 2 sets of these rows with then also correctly those amounts listed. So this is how the corrections are taken into the payment application to EC and into the accounts. So in the accounts, it is kind of like a bank account, you could say, where you can see whenever payment applications are created. So draft ones are directly updating the appendix 1. So you can directly see how much has been reported. And all you have to do is then add corrections on top and justify some of the corrections, and then you are done with the accounts. The rest all goes automatically. And then you can also close the accounts. And that is now not allowed, because you see, for example, closing of accounts can only happen when all payment applications to EC for that fund and that accounting year are in draft. So I just got an error because there is probably, as you can see, a payment application to EC for year 1 that is still in draft. So that means you're not allowed to close the accounts. So I can even sort this, so I could check all year 1s, and I see now that all the ERDF payment applications to EC are finished. So now I'm most likely allowed to close the accounts. And once I do so, what is also important to know is that I'm then not allowed anymore to create, because you see year 1 is not even grayed out but fully hidden, to create new payment applications to EC for that accounting year, because the accounts are already closed. So you would first have to reopen the accounts, and then you can add again a payment application to EC for those accounts and that accounting year. Once you have included the corrections in the payment application to EC, as I explained, then in the corrections itself, the bottom part will automatically be pre-filled, and you can then see that those corrections are then actually included in the account. So in this example, for example, you can see that this correction was included in year 1 of the account. And also that it originally was also declared in year 1 in this payment application to EC. So all that information in the correction itself will be automatically updated. And then lastly, to briefly show this Article 94-95 case, this is quite complex, but there's only few programs that are dealing with this. That is these two questions in the contract monitoring that already existed in your installation. If they are partly or yes, any of these two, it means that the entire project and their faster lump sums and their reports go to the separate page in the payment application to EC where you have to identify the union contribution. Technically, you can also switch this, and then also the reports jump back to the other page. But of course, if you have any payment application to EC closed, they will no longer switch. So the closed ones, of course, stay where they are, but the new then created reports and new payment applications to EC will have the reports then under, for example, the regular reporting. So a lot has been said. You can also reread this in the manual. We have explained in the chapters how it works. What we are still planning to develop, because it was one of the features on the wish list, is for the corrections to also have a helper here so that it could indicate what the flat rates are. So when you fill in the amount here, it would advise you that for this partner report, there were these and these flat rates, so that you should add a certain amount on top so that you are aware of how much you have to add. But in the first iteration, the calculation has to be done all manually. So have a look at our manual and see if everything is clear as such. If not, you can always reach us on the help desk. Good luck with reporting to the Commission and dealing with corrections.